Elon and Vivek should tackle U.S. funding for this boondoogle organization and score a multi-million-dollar win. Congress has long been skeptical about UN uses of American money, so much so that they have insisted upon an annual report on United States participation in the United Nations. In the search to eliminate waste and unaccountable spending, a $20 billion annual savings plan is immediately available to incoming President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency DOGE, American taxpayer dollars flowing to the United Nations. Each year, the U.S. provides nearly a quarter of the UN's total expenses, including assessed or mandatory regular funding of more than $3 billion and voluntary contributions that have vacillated between $10 and $15 billion in each of the past 2 years. Taking into account in-kind support services, the total is likely even higher. UN demands and U.S. subsidies have ballooned, with U.S. payouts almost doubling over the last decade. Alarm bells ought to ring out for Americans both because of how the money gets spent and where it is going. Trump administration could lead to budget cuts, leadership shakeup at UN. Here are a few of the rabbit holes where your money ends up. U.S. taxpayers pay for UN tax-free salaries, for UN lounges set up for watching sports games with bargain prices for food and drink, for media campaigns and other festivities to celebrate the International Day of Neutrality, invented by Russia, Afghanistan, and friends, and the International Day of Banks. U.S. dollars for peacekeepers include the blue helmets in southern Lebanon UNIFIL who have kept busy observing Hezbollah rearm, build terror tunnels, take up positions among Lebanese civilians, and fire at Israelis. The surging expenses of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, from your wallets, have included staffing and support for a Chinese, independent expert on international financial obligations of states on the full enjoyment of all human rights, an expert on a democratic and equitable international order who advocated that the International Criminal Court tackle American crimes against humanity, and an expert on international solidarity created at the behest of Cuba. Former high-level United Nations officials to launch DOGE and to highlight agency inefficiencies. Congress has long been skeptical about UN uses of American money, so much so that they have insisted upon an annual report on United States participation in the United Nations. The most recent report during the Biden administration was published in March 2024 and covered the year 2022. Here is its astonishing conclusion. It is increasingly challenging for the United States to identify cost savings at the UN given the growing demands that UN member states place on the organization. DOGE can respond to this apparent brain freeze with the proper course of deserved financial oversight. The UN budget, which covers everything from well over 100,000 long-term employees, administrative costs, peacekeeping, and a broad range of agencies and subsidiary bodies, deliberately lacks the transparency necessary to end misuse and corruption. The General Assembly, for instance, is nonplussed about breaking its own elementary rule that no new activity will be approved without the cost being calculated and presented before the vote. Sign now and squeeze member states later is familiar practice, as is tapping unused resources in one corner to satisfy unfilled appetites in another. Click here for more Fox News opinion. At the heart of the UN financial structure lies the bad idea that the United States must pay for whatever abomination it votes against. Fans call it burden sharing. We pay for what we don't like, and other countries help pay for our priorities. The truth is that the end product doesn't shake out on the plus side either for American national interests or taxpayer pocketbooks. A 2005 task force on the United Nations, initiated during the George W. Bush administration and headed by Newt Gingrich and George Mitchell, voiced concern about insufficient supervision and talked a lot about reform. As it turns out, the watchword of reform in UN circles has been a euphemism for keep on keeping on until somebody notices again. Congress has also come up with other formulas for withholding money from the UN, like refusing to fund a tiny list of UN projects dedicated to the destruction of the State of Israel. However, the UN has invented more such projects and Congress has taken years, if at all, to add to the withholding list and to confront the fundamental moral rot epitomized by the UN as systemic demonization of Israel. DOGE creates an opportunity to clean house. They can anticipate at least two rejectionist camps. Democrats who flog the erroneous idea that multilateralism begins and ends with the UN and New Yorkers who figure they benefit from UN diplomats whining, dining, and hanging out in their neighborhood, whether or not they are hosting entourages of terrorists and criminal masterminds. Not only should the material and spiritual benefits of otherwise developing the prime real estate of Midtown Manhattan be factored in for the sake of the locals, but the rest of the country also deserves a voice. A long overdue tally of American UN expenditures versus American needs is not a call to end American generosity or compassion beyond our borders. It is a call to protect the American goose laying the golden eggs from an avaricious and dangerous United Nations. The Biden administration thought that finding savings for U.S. money filling UN coffers was a challenge. To which DOGE can be all set to reply, challenge accepted. And Herzberg is legal advisor and UN representative of Ngo Monitor.